So let's talk about security clearances, what they are, and why they matter. If you've ever wondered about these, well, it's essentially the government granting an individual access to classified information. Now, for most people, a very rigorous clearance undertaking is required. But for figures like the president, vice president, members of Congress, or senior level officials, their election or appointment often bypasses this. The idea is historically rooted in ensuring continuity and informed decision making, even after someone leaves public service. And it's not just tradition. It's about tapping into their vast institutional knowledge when, let's say, national security questions arise. Former officials like President Biden or Vice President Harris, well, they are inherently seen as assets to the intelligence community because of that experience. Now, having that clearance taken away, especially when you're someone like a former president or vice president, does more than block access to, let's call it, top secret content. It casts a shadow, one that questions your reputation and your integrity. It could impact opportunities to sit on advisory boards or even weigh in as an expert on critical policy issues. And that's a pretty significant hit for professionals who've spent decades building that trust. Think about it. What does that say about their credibility? And this isn't just a them problem. It has broader implications. Imagine a world where in healthcare, a leading doctor loses their license not because of malpractice, but due to a, politically motivated decision. How do you think patients would feel about their treatment? And more importantly, how functional would the system remain? You see, trust and expertise go hand in hand. Strip one away and society feels that ripple effect. So when clearances get revoked, it's not just about the practical implications of losing classified access, but it can signal, honestly, a shift in how we perceive leadership. It sets a tone and forces us, all of us, to grapple with what's really happening at a systemic level. Play this clip.
Administration policy on security clearances. President Donald Trump officially barring a long list of previously named rivals from access to classified information, while the White House denies reports that Elon Musk was scheduled to receive a Pentagon briefing yesterday on U.S. war plans. Here's part of a report from NBC's Vaughn Hilliard.
The White House revoking security clearances for former Vice President Kamala Harris and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, adding to a lengthy list of former high-ranking government officials who President Trump has sought to cut off since taking office 2 months ago. It comes after Elon Musk's controversial meeting at the Pentagon on Friday. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth welcoming the tech billionaire for an internal briefing.
Elon Musk is a patriot. Elon Musk is an innovator.
Hegseth defending the meeting, despite Musk's companies, notably Starlink, receiving billions of dollars in defense contracts.
Elon Musk provides a lot of capabilities our government and our military rely on, and I'm grateful for that.
The New York Times reported on Thursday that military officials intended to discuss plans for a potential war with China. Two defense officials told NBC News that Musk, who has a security clearance, was expected to receive an unclassified briefing on China, though the president later denied that any such information was given to Musk.
Meanwhile, breaking news right now, anti-Musk protesters are gathering at a Tesla dealership in New York City to voice their displeasure with his role in the Trump administration. We have several reporters and analysts ready to discuss all of these new developments. We're going to begin with NBC's 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 Alcindor, who's at the White House. 𝐬𝐮, welcome. So what are we hearing from the Trump administration about why certain officials are losing their security clearances today?
Well, this is really interesting, Alex. President Trump is saying that it's no longer in national interest to have these individuals have their security clearances. But critics of this move really say that this reads like a list of people that President Trump sees as his perceived enemies. And I want to walk through, of course, some of the people. We see it there on the screen. They include former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, as well as former Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Jake Sullivan was the former National Security Advisor. We also have Liz Cheney, who, of course, was a Republican who made headlines for pushing back against President Trump's perceived role in the January 6th Capitol attack. We also have former Vice President Kamala Harris, who of course ran against President Trump, and of course former President Biden, who was also of course someone who President Trump has taken aim at over and over again in the first 2 months of his second administration here. So what you see here really is a list of people that President Trump has sort of identified as being people who would be counteracting and misusing in some ways their security clearance. But the official stance is that this is against national interest for them to continue to have these security clearances.
Okay, so there are some new questions, Yamiche, about why Elon Musk was at the Pentagon on Friday. How is the White House responding to all these concerns?
Well, there are a lot of concerns about whether or not Elon Musk was going to get a briefing on China when he went to the Pentagon yesterday. The president saying that if Elon Musk heard about China, that he believes he would walk out of the room. We don't believe that that happened, but the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has continued to say that he did not get a briefing on China, and instead he talked about innovation and the future with Elon Musk. Take a listen to more of what the Defense Secretary said.
Elon Musk provides a lot of capabilities our government and our military rely on, and I'm grateful for that. We welcomed him today to the Pentagon to talk about DOGE, to talk about efficiencies, to talk about innovations. It was a great informal conversation.
Now, let's examine these recent actions. Revoking the security clearances of Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, and other notable political opponents. What we're seeing, frankly, seems less about national security and more about sending a message. A message that's, let's be honest, designed to chill dissent and solidify control. Now think about the broader spectrum here. When critics, and not just critics, but those who've literally devoted their careers to governance or public service, are publicly targeted this way, it does not just silence them, right? No, it creates a kind of ripple effect that can make others think twice about speaking out. You know, the what if I'm next kind of hesitation. And what does that hesitation do in a democracy? It weakens the push and pull that's so critical for accountability. Without critics, loud, persistent critics, we lose parts of the system that hold power in check. It's like in medicine. Without second opinions or dissenting voices in peer reviews, we risk bad science dictating patient care. And I think we'd risk bad governance doing the same for society. But here's the even bigger question for all of us to grapple with. Does this retaliatory stance change how we view governance? I mean, when leadership becomes more about silencing than serving. Does our trust in the system shift? Do we start seeing figures in power as less accountable, less cooperative, and basically untouchable? These power moves, retaliations, they're not just footnotes in history books. They shape how people interact with governance, how they perceive democracy. And in targeting those dissenting voices, intentionally or not, leaders might be shaping something even larger, a society that fears criticism more than it fights for accountability. Let's take a step back and evaluate what these recent actions could mean for the future. When security clearances are revoked in this way, well, it sets a powerful precedent, doesn't it? A precedent that suggests such privileges can be wielded as political tools rather than measures grounded in national security. And I think that raises fundamental questions about the balance of executive power in this country. From a legal perspective, these decisions invite scrutiny under the First Amendment. I mean, let's consider the implications. Could revoking clearances for perceived political dissent actually amount to suppressing free speech or discouraging critique? Some constitutional experts are saying this might push courts to intervene, even though historically security clearance decisions have largely been deferred to the executive branch. But here we see an opening, perhaps, for judicial review. And wouldn't that change the dynamic entirely? Beyond the legal framework, let's examine how these actions could reshape America's global standing. When the U.S. starts using tools like clearance revocations to retaliate against political opposition, it sends a different kind of message to our foreign allies. A message that perhaps our commitment to democracy, to free and open governance is, well, not as firm as we claim. That undermines trust. And when nations question our values, it becomes harder, does it not, to lead on the world stage? And what about future administrations? These actions risk normalizing political retaliation, embedding it into the very structure of our governance. Imagine what happens when this practice becomes commonplace, when each new president feels justified in undoing the work or credibility of their predecessors, not for policy reasons, but as a show of power. Where does that leave us? Where does that leave democracy? Ultimately, we as citizens need to be vigilant. The ripple effects of these decisions, both domestically and abroad, will shape not just our policies, but our principles moving forward. I want to challenge all of us to think critically. How do we ensure that democracy remains a system of accountability and not retaliation? That wraps up today's episode of The Real 411. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for tuning in and for your continued support. It means more than you know. If you found value in today's discussion, please drop a comment. Follow us on all social media platforms and let us know what topics you'd like to see us cover next. Be sure to sign up for our email newsletter so you never miss an update or exclusive insight. And if you believe in independent media that digs deeper and dares to tell the truth, please consider following The Real 411 on Substack and Fanbase. We offer both free and paid subscriptions, and your support helps us continue producing content that informs, empowers, and sparks real conversation. Thanks again for being part of this journey, because remember, the story is never just the headline. Until next time, stay informed, stay bold, and stay real.